Ruben Amorim gets his reign underway finally in his second game in charge at home to Bodo Glimt with a 3-2 come from behind win. His reign is up and running. Welcome to Manchester United, the D in its view. Look, I got up super early this morning at 3:55 in order to check the lineup, and there were lots of things to take into account. He made 6 changes from the lineup that played obviously away at Ipswich Town on the weekend. So I suppose the best place to go from there is actually to talk through the changes that we saw. So there were quite a few. So Lisandro Martinez came back into the lineup for Johnny Evans, which was not a surprise. I mean, Johnny Evans did look a little bit out of position in that one. Anthony started for the first time this season that I can recall. He might have started in the League Cup. I honestly can't remember, but I feel like this is his first appearance for a very long time. And obviously, Amad Diallo dropped to the bench instead. Christian Eriksen and Casemiro were nowhere to be found in the starting lineup today. It instead was Manuel Ugarte and Bruno Fernandes in a much lower pivot. I suppose that's the way to describe it. It was interesting. We'll talk about his performance in a little bit. And then obviously Malacia started for the first time since, I actually don't know when he last played. So if anyone knows, please put it in the comments. But it was at least 18 months ago, and he started instead of Dallo, who dropped to the bench. And we'll talk about his performance in a little bit. And then Rasmus Højlund came in for Marcus Rashford up front. Garncho kept his place, and Mason Mount came in the number 10 position, effectively replacing Christian Eriksen, but obviously Bruno Fernandes dropped into the role that Christian Eriksen played against Ipswich Town on Sunday. So, look, to be honest, we looked a lot better in this game than we did on Sunday, but there were still some glaring issues that I think you can best describe it as the leftover effects of the Erik Ten Hag era. And look, we scored again. It seems like United are fast starters under Ruben Amorim, so we went even quicker this week. In this game than we did on the weekend, where obviously Marcus Rashford scored within 81 seconds. Today it was within the first minute. That's how quick we started. And Garncho, I mean, the keeper was massively at fault for Bodo Glimt. I do not know what he was doing. He allowed himself to be tackled by Rasmus Højlund. The ball just sort of spilled there, and Garncho was the quickest to sort of intervene, and he got in the way, and he just tap that into an empty net. I mean, it doesn't get much more simpler than that. So, look, that was the perfect start. And then there were moments like Garncho had one of them polarizing games where, he was so close to just having an absolute worldie of a game. Like, he could have scored multiple times. And when he does develop, both, he needs to deliver the final ball, but he also needs to develop his final ball, because that was lacking. And I mean, on another night, and I feel like some people sit there and say, is there a natural position for him in the system? And look, he kept on getting the ball. And I don't think he played poorly. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he played poorly, but he probably got a 6 out of 10 for the game because he was so wasteful. And I think that's become a bit of a problem of Garnacho's, is that he seems like it's almost like he thinks that he has to go to goal, rather than if he actually sat there and looked up and played a decent pass, Rasmus Højlund would have been in for a few more. And look, he played super well. We'll get on to him in a second. But I just wanted to start with Garncho, because Garnacho's just... And I think you've got to put it down to his inexperience. Now, he is only 20 years old, and I think he's still in the development phase. But he needs to start getting his head up more and playing the percentages, because you can't always score every time you go forward. And he does get enough of the ball, and he is damaging when he's got it. But he could be more damaging if he just develops this final bit that's going to help him push on to the world-class level. I feel like Cristiano Ronaldo, very similar in terms of his end product early in his career. Quite often he was so frustrating to watch, because he'd sit there and he'd do a dribble, and then he'd take him on, and then he'd come back, and then he'd shoot when he shouldn't be shooting, and he didn't pass when he should be passing. But he developed it, and eventually he became an absolute... Well, we all know the career Cristiano Ronaldo has gone on to have. So I think at the end of the day, that's something you've got to take into account. I mean, can Garncho do that? Yes, I think he can. I just think that he probably needs to be working on that craft in training. That has got to be his number one focus, just making better decisions. And I feel like across the board, that is what we are consistently let down by, is poor decision making. And that was an evident again today. So look, you could see a lot of what Ten Hag has been trying to do for 3 years or 2.5 years with Manchester United and the way they went about pressing. And they have pressed so effectively for a large part of the game today. Like, Bodo Glimt did not have it easy. Don't get me wrong. They were harassed. They were hounded. And it all started from the front. Rasmus Højlund put himself about. He put an absolute shift in to the point where Ruben Amorim said he was dead in the second half. And like, look, he probably did run out of gas, and I don't blame him because he hasn't obviously been playing 90 minutes every week. He is young. He's still only 21, I think. I'm going to hazard a guess. And, you know, he's still got a lot to learn as well. But the pressure started from up top. Rasmus Højlund was running around, pressing, and so was Mason Mount. And that's why Ten Hag wanted to play him in the team, because he is such a great presser. He's such a great player without the ball. And look, I thought Mason Mount played really well. I thought he was one of our better players, and I feel like he was just managed for his workload so he doesn't break down again, because the last thing that Mason Mount and Manchester United need is another injury to him. Because at the moment, he's just been, unfortunately for him, he's just been getting injured way too often since he's joined Manchester United. So hopefully we can build him up to proper fitness and we might actually get to see the best of Mason Mount, because I think the best of Mason Mount, he makes the starting lineup. I'm pretty confident in that number 10 role. And look, it's going to be interesting because obviously Garncho has been occupying one of those 10 roles in the Ruben Amorim system for the opening 2 games. I'm expecting that to continue probably on Sunday when we play Everton at home. I think that's a game tailor-made for Garncho, because you'll need his speed and running in behind, and you do know that he is going to run most of the game. Whereas Marcus Rashford, you just don't know what you're going to get. And look, it was interesting when he came on, and we'll talk about when he came on a little bit later, and the subs and the aggressiveness of the subs, which I quite enjoyed. Now, look, let's talk about one of the other players that started for the first time in 18 months, and that was Tyrell Malacia. Now, bless him, it was great to see him running out there in a United shirt, and the jury was out on him in terms of whether he was good enough back in his first season, and I saw nothing, unfortunately, and this is going to come across as quite brutal, but he did nothing to justify that he's going to be an option moving forward. Let's just put it that way. Every time he got forward, and he got into some amazing positions, not one cross went in. I don't actually recall him crossing the ball. In fact, I do recall him crossing it once, and it was like the easiest cross, and it literally landed like in the breadbasket of the keeper. And there might have been one more, and it was just as poor. Quite often he got into these positions near the byline, and then he'd just come back and then slow it down, and then he'd pass it backwards. That's pretty much what I saw most of the game. And then I saw him getting burnt in a one-on-one race with the Bodo Glimt guy. Oh, who was it that scored? It might have been Everton, but whoever it was just burnt him. Absolutely burnt him for speed. And that was quite bad to watch. I mean, it wasn't a surprise. I feel like potentially he was going to only play 45 minutes anyway, but he got an absolute hounding out there in the first 45 minutes. And we did look definitely weak down that particular side of the ground. So look, I wouldn't put it down as a great performance from Malacia. If anything, I'd probably rate it 5 out of 10, if that. I just didn't think he did much. And I feel like he got a lot of the ball and didn't really do a hell of a lot with it, which is never a good sign. Yeah, from there, obviously, as I've talked about Mason Mount, I thought he was really good, and I feel like his minutes were managed. Yeah, he was really good. Manuel Ugarte obviously came in, and I think this is probably just a reflection on the fact that I feel like he would have 100% started on Sunday if it wasn't for the fact that he was coming back from South America, and they probably need to look at how quickly these players come back after playing with the international team, because he came back almost 2 days after he'd played his game, which makes no sense to me. You'd think they'd fly back the day after and arrive back a day earlier, which would then mean he'd be more of a chance of being able to play straight after the international break. But look, he didn't, and he looked really good. Let's be honest, he won every duel he went into, bar 2. That's how good he was at winning back the ball. And I think he had a passing completion rate off the top of my head of about 90 to 92%. I think he completed 60 of 66 passes or 65 passes, something like that. It was super high. He was super tidy, and he kept the ball working and rotating around. The Manchester United actually had 72% possession of the ball. And like Ruben Amorim came in and he said 2 things before we'd even kick the ball in a new Ruben Amorim team. And that was Manchester United gave the ball way too carelessly. They need to get better at looking after the ball. That was his number one thing. And number two thing is we need to work harder and run back more. And I feel like we saw signs of that against Ipswich Town, particularly in the second half. This was definitely a continuation and a building upon. I would argue that Bodo Glimt are a much more inferior team than what Ipswich Town are. And I think that speaks to the high level that the Premier League is and how many good teams there are inside the actual Premier League. But we definitely dominated the possession and it looked good. And in the second half, it really did look like one-way traffic, other than when Delo played a horrible ball back and it looked like Onana was just going to be rounded. And thankfully, Onana pulled out his best Harry Maguire and basically stopped them in their tracks outside the box. It was very nervy. It could have easily been an equaliser and it would have been 3-3. But it wasn't. So look, we'll go into the next player that started in this game, which is interesting, and that was Anthony. So Anthony was resurrected. He got his chance at wing back, and let's be honest, I mean, if you compared him to what Malacia offered and what Delo offered in the second half, you would say that Anthony played the best out of those three. And that's the only compliment I give him, because Malacia I didn't think was any good, and I don't think Delo was any better either. I actually think Delo made Malacia look better than what he was. And that's not... I just don't think Delo does well on the left-hand side. Like, I know he's been played there by now Ten Hag and also Ruben Amorim. I just don't see him on that side. He just looks a little lost and not clear as to what his positioning and things like this should be. So, look, for me, I don't know, man. Delo can't get back in on the right-hand side. Mazraoui has just continued his fine form. He was close to best on ground again. I'd have him as the second best player on the pitch today behind Rasmus Højlund, and we'll get to Rasmus Højlund in a little bit. But, I thought he was really good. So, Anthony was poor. So, I don't know if he gets any more chances. It's not like he did anything glaringly wrong, but he didn't do anything really with the ball. There was only one moment in the game where he sort of did a run, took a player on, got in, then he put a ball on the outside of his left foot into the box, it came back out, and then it came back to him, and then he did another thing, and then that was about the only good highlight I can remember of Anthony. And he played it very safe. He kept on passing a ball backwards and maybe 5 metres to the side, and that was about it. That's nothing else more I can say about that. I just thought that he was very basic and, just interesting, I'd suppose. I suppose DeLitt, I didn't think DeLitt was overly good either, and I feel like for the first goal, when Tyrone Malacia just got burnt down the outside, I don't know why DeLitt does not get over quicker and cover that space. And the goal all comes down because of the fact that the left centre-back, which was Lisandro Martinez, and the right centre-back, which was Mazraoui, actively are following their instructions to push high up the field and try and win the ball in the midfield and then try and keep the ball going in our half. And the problem was Lisandro Martinez went out there, got nowhere near the press, and then it just got played over, and Malacia was woefully exposed, let's put it honestly. And then DeLitt really just should have done more. I felt like he should have gone across and covered, and I felt like that was just as much a DeLitt mistake as it was a Malacia mistake. And that's what led to the goal. And then unfortunately, and we'll get on to the Bruno Fernandes thing in a minute, but when he went back to defend, he doesn't have that mentality of what he should be doing in terms of picking up the players. Like Bruno loves to go and harass and press the ball, but quite often he does it without any actual directional aim or things like this. And I think that that's problematic in a team that needs a bit more structure that Ruben Amorim's trying to put in. I'm not sure. I'm not sold on Bruno Fernandes in that role, but if you play Bruno Fernandes in that role, it means you can then start Mason Mount and one other, like in this case, Garncho, if you've got Fernandes there. And look, obviously they do have the safety net of the fact that they've got 3 centre-backs behind them. So you would think it makes sense long-term. I'm just not sure. I feel like Bruno Fernandes is much better around the goal, but today he wasn't. He had a fair few shots today, and they were all pretty lackluster and not really troubling the keeper. In fact, I don't even know if any of them were on target, to be honest with you. I think that's pretty much sums up the game Bruno had, and we'll talk a little bit on that instead. And it was quite often, it was good though today, because normally Bruno Fernandes would get the ball in those positions and he just looked to hit it long. And today I don't feel like he did that. It was like he was almost thinking it through, and he was like, no, don't hit it long, look for a smaller pass. And he kept I think he had 88% possession in terms of, 88% successful passes from Bruno Fernandes overnight. And normally I would hazard a guess and say his normal average hovers around the 70%. So you could tell that he was actively trying to keep the ball better and look after it more. And obviously that's a direct instruction from Ruben Amorim, because let's be honest, you're more likely to do stuff with the ball if you've kept it rather than wasting your energy going around trying to get it back. It also means you can wear your opposition out a bit more. And I think that's also relatively important, particularly in the system that Ruben Amorim is trying to play. There. Look, Lissandro Martinez came in for obviously Johnny Evans, and I didn't think he was horrible, but he also got subbed in the second half for Luke Shaw. And I think that was a combination of trying to make sure Lissandro Martinez doesn't overdo it, considering he's coming back from having back issues apparently. And Luke Shaw, obviously, we still need to build up his fitness, and I think at the moment probably the smart idea is just to give him 30 minutes every game in that left centre-back role until he is fit enough to actually start a game. Luke Shaw did nothing wrong when he came on. He looked solid. And other than Martinez, when he pressed super high forward in that first half, I thought he was actually fairly decent as well. But and he obviously played a lot of those balls. Him and Mazraoui played so many balls into like the forward third. It was mad. It was so good to watch. Like, it was just, the attacking intent was there, and I think that that's definitely an improvement on what we saw on Sunday, where it looked really stale and stagnant and just didn't really feel like much was happening, particularly in that second half. Like, we had a lot of the ball, but we weren't really doing anything with it. And look, let's talk about the last player that came in, and that was for Marcus Rashford. So Rasmus Højlund came in, and I tell you what, Marcus Rashford is going to have a job to get his spot back in the team in that number 9 role. And I tell you what, we'll go on to Joshua Zirkzee in a minute. But Rasmus Højlund, he was fantastic. I think he only had 2 shots, and they both went in. His first goal was just brilliant. Like, just muscle to shake off the centre defender, and then his perfect placement. It was a fantastic goal. Mazraoui, obviously, with a delicious ball in as well. And then the second goal was what you'd expect to see more of in a Ruben Amorim system, because the idea is that the 2 10s and the wide players create balls and chances for the striker, who then puts it away when it's put on a silver platter. It was very much a Man City-esque, like a Liverpool goal. It was just a good goal. I mean, it all started with Mazraoui, and then Ugarte obviously had the assist, and Mason Mount was involved. All those players were involved, and then it was just a simple tap-in for Rasmus Højlund. And that's the kind of goals and the kind of chances we need to be creating for him moving forward, because those are the ones that are like high percentage volume go in. It's very rare that you miss one of those chances. So I think that that's definitely something they've got to continue working on moving forward. And look, that was brilliant. It was brilliant to watch. And I think that Marcus Rashford is going to struggle to get back into that number 9 position. And obviously he came on in the second half, and we'll talk about the substitutions in a minute. He came on in the second half, and, you know, I feel like him and Ahmad just kept running into the same spaces. Like, Marcus Rashford was deployed in one of them 10 roles, but he kept on drifting out into where Ahmad was playing, because obviously Ahmad came on for Anthony and went back into the right wing-back role. Ahmad made all the other wing-backs yesterday that played, the other 3, look bang average, because every time Ahmad got the ball, something looked like it was going to happen. That dude has the excitement on him. It's just something about him, the way he moves, the way he's got the skill, he can hold off players, and he actually looks like he's going to create something every time he gets the ball. And that's definitely been lacking in this team. And I can't see a world where Ahmad does not end up with a regular starting role in a Ruben Amorim system. And be it's either at right wing-back to accommodate others in the 2 10 positions, or in one of the 10 positions. I actually think that his best natural position with the skill set he's got would actually be in one of those 2 number 10 positions. But at the moment, Ruben Amorim has been playing him in the right wing-back role when he's been on the field. And look, with Mazraoui in the form that he's in at right centre-back, I just can't see that changing. I think it's important to keep him there because he's playing so well. But when Lenny Oro's fit, maybe it's a fight for that centre-back role where De Ligt was, because I didn't think De Ligt was overly fabulous today. He was solid, but he wasn't amazing. And maybe his position's the one that's in question. Or maybe it's Martinez's. But I feel like Shaw potentially could be that left centre-back just with his passing and distribution. I'm not sure. It's going to be interesting to see how it develops as the players get fitter, as they become more available, as Ruben Amorim finds out certain things about certain players, what they can, what they can't do. It's all going to be a bit of a learning curve, and he did allude to that. And he said it was a special one. He was very excited because of the fact that he talked after the game about, it is a work on progress. Rasmus Højlund, what he had to do to improve. It was good that he'd already looked at the performance and said, this is what you can do to be better. I think that's great. That's what you kind of need, someone to sit there and say, yeah, you've played really well, but this is also how you can improve. I mean, as a teacher, that's exactly what I'm doing with my kids. I'm like, yes, that was amazing, but look, this is what potentially where you could have done a bit more or whatever, finer details. I think that's brilliant. And I think that's going to be really good for particularly like players like Rasmus Højlund and Ahmad, these young players developing, even Mainu. People are concerned about Mainu. He obviously sat on the bench for the whole game again. I'm not sure why he's on the bench if he can't come on and play. Maybe it's just the fact that they don't want to risk him and the game wasn't in a state where they were willing to take the risk. But I would imagine he's going to be involved sooner rather than later because I'm not convinced Bruno Fernandes in the deep lying role is made for him. And I feel like that should really be Mainu with Ugarte. Or maybe they're going to play Mainu a little bit further forward in one of the 10 positions. Maybe he gets a chance there. I'm not sure. I feel like our best team definitely has Mainu in it. So I think it'll be sooner rather than later when we see him on the field. That's just my personal opinion. And then, so yeah, as I said before, when Rashford came on, it was interesting. As I said, he took up one of them 10 roles. He played more on the right because obviously Garncho was still on the left. And, he just kept on drifting into the same sort of space that Ahmad did. He had a chance to shoot. He pulled it wide. I just don't think he makes it back in. I don't think he displaces Rasmus Højlund on the weekend. So he's either playing as a number 10, which I feel like Mason Mount played well there. And I know that Rashford's not going to offer the same kind of pressing or defensive diligence as you will get from Mason Mount. But also, I think that Bruno Fernandes, I don't think he starts in that deeper lying role on the weekend. I don't think he's got he hasn't got the tactical acumen yet to know exactly what to do in the Ruben Amorim system. Maybe he will develop that. I'm not 100% sure, but it is going to be interesting to see. But look, the main thing is we're up to now 12th in the table in the Europa League, which is fantastic. So we're almost up into the top 8, which means that we won't then have to play the playoff. And obviously we've got, I think we've still got 3 games left in order to make sure that doesn't happen. So, we are on the upwards trend. We are finally getting the wins that we need in order to make sure that doesn't happen. And we've obviously played our harder games as well. And look, we've got an exciting one coming up with Rangers at home in December. So that should be exciting. So keep your eyes peeled out for that one. So look, looking ahead, obviously Casemiro also came off the bench and he's played the last, I'm going to say 10 minutes or so at centre back. That was interesting. It was a little fraught with danger. He just doesn't look like that's a position that's any good for him. I wouldn't be surprised if Casemiro came in and played where Bruno played this on Sunday and we saw Bruno go back into one of the 10 positions. Mason Mount may not be able to start 2 games in the space of 4 days, which wouldn't surprise me either. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. So I'm just going to quickly read out some of the stats now from the game. So United, as I said, had 72% possession. We had 20 shots to 7. So 20 shots in a game is something to talk about because obviously we have been a little bit goal shy in terms of shots and scoring goals. We had 6 shots on target, with obviously 3 of them going in. Bodo Glimt had 4, and we had a total passes of 787 to 299. So we're dominant there. We lost the tackle count, which isn't a surprise considering we had so much of the ball. There was 13 tackles to 16. But and I would dare say that most of those tackles are made by Manuel Ugarte. He was immense in midfield, and hopefully that kind of form can kick on and we can see some of that in the Premier League and see the reason why we spent so much money on him in the first place. Aerial duels won. We obviously won more of them as well, which was good. So look, there's lots of positive to take out of it. I think the disappointing thing is that obviously we conceded 2 goals again in the space of 4 minutes, which was very much something that was very evident under Erik Ten Hag for such a long period of time. That needs to stop ASAP. We can't afford to be doing that on Sunday. Now, looking ahead to Sunday and the Everton game, you would think that this should be a win. Like, Everton don't seem to be scoring goals. I don't think they've actually scored in their last 3 or 4 games. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is about as profligate as Joshua Zirkzee. And Joshua Zirkzee, I actually don't know where he sits in this team. He's not a number 9, and he's definitely not capable of playing one of those 10 roles better than the players that have been playing there in the first 2 games. I don't know if he gets a chance as a 9, but he's not clinical enough. And with the fact that Rasmus Højlund has now scored 2 goals, I just do not see how he gets in the team. And I don't even see how he comes on as a sub. I know he came on as a sub against Ipswich Town, and obviously Ruben Amorim was not happy with what he saw, and it wasn't a surprise that we didn't see him at all in this game. And I think this could be a precursor to, Ineos and United admitting that they got it wrong and probably trying to ship him out as quickly as possible. I just don't see a role for him, and I don't see where he naturally fits. So that's just my personal opinion on him. And then, so yeah, when it comes to Everton, it is the Sunday afternoon kickoff, so hopefully we can deliver a good result. Obviously, Everton are going to provide some sort of a challenge. They have been defending relatively well, so we might struggle to break them down. But we're just going to have to continue working at it. Really, we're just going to have to try and get better and better at, creating our chances, being more clinical. And Garncho is definitely the one that needs to be leading the way there, because so many of our chances have come to him. And I feel like he needs to get on board with actually giving the ball to Rasmus Højlund for us to go to that next level. Because the amount of times he has that chance to play that ball instead of going for goal and making the wrong decision one way or the other, he's just got to develop that IQ, the ability to play that pass, the ability to finish when he needs to finish. So there's plenty to work on, and I think Ruben Amorim was very happy that we obviously got going, and he did talk about using the squad. And we saw that, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw another 6 changes on Sunday in the lead up to Everton to keep the squad fresh. Obviously, the games are coming thick and fast, and obviously we do have that midweek game against Arsenal away from home at the Emirates Stadium in midweek next week. So I would suggest that we will see some rotation, and we may see like some of the, maybe that's why Mainu hasn't been playing, is because he's got his eye mark for that particular game. But we should just see what he does with the team selection on Sunday going into Everton. But I would expect us to build on the positive result we've had overnight against Bodo Glimt. And obviously we did get the disappointing draw on Sunday, but I think that we really do need to start picking up points in the Premier League, and I think that will be the utmost imperative on the weekend. And Ruben Amorim even adjusted his tactics in mid-game in order to make sure that we did get the result in the Europa League here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we did see a bit of adaptability. He has acknowledged, obviously, that if plan A is not working, we still need to be winning, and he knows how important it is that we need to be winning. So we kept on attacking how he wanted us to attack. But I think in the second half, for a little bit there, we defended a little bit differently, but that was just to make sure that we didn't give away big, stupid chances like we were giving away in the first half. So, look, if you've enjoyed that take on my game and the preview in towards Everton, I just think it will swat Everton aside, to be honest. Please make sure you like the video and smash the subscribe button if you are new. Hopefully you've enjoyed this, hopefully intelligent content on what I have thought of Manchester United's performance. And join me on Sunday. I will be doing a live watch along for that game before I review it in the immediate aftermath. That's been Manchester United, the D in its view. Have a good Friday afternoon.